It is our desire to establish a Reformed denomination, first of all, because we believe that the Reformed faith is the most faithful expression of the message of the Old and New Testament. So it is a matter of principle. It is a matter of faithfulness to what has been entrusted to us, to pass on the faith delivered to the saints once for all. I believe that we are the only church in Italy confessing the three forms of unity. People are ignorant about the richness of the Heidelberg Catechism, for instance. The Heidelberg Catechism uses the Apostles' Creed. The Apostles' Creed gives to us, as Italians, the opportunity, the great opportunity to see and to feel that our church, our Reformed Church, has its roots not only in the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century, but in the ancient church, in the Apostolic Church. And this is important for us as Italians because we are always under the pressure from Roman Catholicism, which uses several arguments to make us feel as if we were not a real church, because they can claim the tradition of the apostles. But having in our church the possibility to learn the Heidelberg Catechism and also ancient confessions of faith such as the Apostles' Creed and others important documents, we feel very much to be part of the Catholic Church, the real Catholic Church. People don't know the taste these documents, these confessional documents have. They don't understand how these confessional documents were hammered out in the crucible of persecution. And this is a great testimony to the Protestant Reformation and to the power of the gospel. So we want people to know, we want Italians to know about these things, and it is our hope, it is our prayer to see a movement in Italy in the future, a movement which will bring about the establishing of a number of Reformed churches.
We never really think of Italy as a great center for Reformed theology, but it certainly was in the 16th century. Some of the greatest names, Peter Martyr Vermigli, Francis Turretin, Diodati, a lot of Italian leadership in the Reformed movement in the 16th century. But then the Inquisition, though, kind of got the upper hand, and Italian Calvinism was really underground, the Waldensian movement and so forth. But in the 20th century and the 21st century, there just hasn't been that great of a witness to Reformation Christianity.
In Italy, there is no Reformed or Presbyterian denomination. As far as I know, there are no organized churches which are Reformed or Presbyterian in Italy. I mean, churches with a good number of members who recognized the ministers of the Word and Sacrament, the elders and deacons. I think we are the only church which is organized, fully organized, and with a sufficient number of church members. So we are by ourselves.
The way I came into contact with Andrea Ferrari was originally through a translation ministry that he was involved with called Alpha and Omega. One of the translators actually, who worked for him is a member of our church, Christ URC in Santee, and she introduced me to Andrea.
I met Reverend Ferrari about 5 years ago when I started to work for Alpha and Omega, which is a publishing house specializing in Reformed material in Italian. And he was the founder and editor-in-chief at the time. One thing that impressed me about Reverend Ferrari was his desire to produce material that was needed in the church. He didn't care about marketing or marketing needs. He was very concerned about the needs of the church. He was concerned about families and training for ministries.
Andrea was overseeing, or one of the overseers of this work, and it was a good work. They were putting good Reformed books into the Italian language for the first time. Gerhardus Voss, Biblical Theology, B.B. Warfield, some of Calvin's stuff. Our church got behind that. Over time, maybe 4 years, he and I developed a friendship. He had come out and stayed with my family a few times, and in the course of that and through some circumstances, he began to rethink ecclesiology.
I pursued ordination with the URC-NA. Moreover, through the years, I had been reading many works and books by ministers or theological professors from within the denomination URC. Bob Godfrey, Mike Horton, Scott Clark. And therefore, in my understanding, if I had to become part of denomination, I had this model in my mind. And therefore, when the opportunity came, I simply took it.
Andrea Ferrari gave us something of a Milanese call. So you have the Macedonian call in the book of Acts, a man saying, "Come over and help us." And Andrea, being a man from Milan, gave us his own call, us being the URC-NA. His vision was to see Reformed churches established in his native country, modeled after something like that which the URC-NA has in terms of its confessions, its polity, etc. He asked us for help. We can either say yes or we can say no. We have said yes. In good conscience, I don't see how we could say no.
One thing I think it's important to say is that it's not that we as URC Church decided to go to plant a church in Italy because it's a cool field or for any other reason. But God had raised already a man there who was concerned for his church and for the church at large in Italy, but even especially for his own church, he wanted to do the right job, the right way. He wanted to have a real confessional Reformed church, and he felt alone. He didn't have any. He didn't have enough support. He felt he didn't have enough support. Definitely not in Italy, and he felt that what he had in other countries was not enough. He wanted a close supervision, and he wanted to actually be accountable for his actions. So when he came here and he found that our church believed the same things that he believed, he asked for our help in this respect.
I traveled over there initially to find out more facts, to see what this church was like in Milan. What I found was a small congregation in this huge city that are very close, they're very united, they love one another, they're very warm, but all of that is a result of the gospel that has been preached there every week faithfully from Reverend Ferrari. And what we found was that they were all alone. They don't belong to any broader assembly, a classis, a presbytery, a federation or denomination of churches. They were basically independent. And the danger of that, of course, is that if there are ever church discipline cases, if there is ever certain needs, you're left alone in an independent structure. So asking for our help, the consistory looked into this very carefully, and we've extended our hand to help, and we are very excited about that. He is now an ordained minister in the URCNA and under our oversight, and I've been back there, participated in the ordination of 2 men to the office of elder, 1 to the office of deacon. All the children have been baptized. The men have signed the form of subscription, the same form of subscription that we sign in the URCNA and that dates back to the Synod of Dort. And watching those men sign the form of subscription there was very moving, especially considering that Giovanni Diodati was one of the delegates to the Synod of Dort, and there was at work on that form of subscription where it was originally crafted. And to see these men sign that same form of subscription, which Diodati had a hand in, now some 400 years later in Milan, was impressive. And so we simply want to help in any way we can.
Some people might think, it's hard to picture Italy as a mission field, but of course it is. First of all, obviously predominantly Roman Catholic, but very nominal. Sometimes it's even more difficult to bring the gospel to those who think they've heard it. In fact, in many cases, what I've seen in Europe is churches being closed down and turned into mosques. So that's where things are headed. And we need to be, I think, treating Europe as well as the United States as a mission field in its own right. What does the Great Commission call us to? It calls us to preach the gospel to everyone, baptize, and teach them everything that He commanded. In other words, to plant churches, to call Christ's sheep, to gather His flock, and to feed His flock until He returns, and to see that flock expand, grow larger and larger. That's our calling. That's our commission. I don't know if maybe sometimes in Reformed circles we think that it's enough to get the gospel right. You don't need to get the gospel out. But we need in the United Reformed Churches a bigger heart for missions. And this is something we can do in very practical terms to help out churches like Andre Ferrari's church, to help them reach that next level of mission that they're capable of with our support. Obviously, there are a lot of roadblocks, and Reformed churches in Italy aren't exactly culturally preferred, and so it's a wonderful opportunity to clearly distinguish the gospel from false gospels. It's also difficult and requires a lot of support, long-term support from churches that believe that our calling is to preach the gospel to every creature, including those who think they've already heard it.